The transfer portal continues to churn. It feels like the transfer portal may never close with all of these 30-day windows opening up for these guys that are losing their head coaches. But I want us to sort of take a look in the rear view a little bit and talk about the most impactful transfer portal ads. Not the splashiest, not the biggest names, though there may be some big names on this list. What are the most impactful transfer portal ads to this point in the transfer portal cycle? The first one you got to look at, and this one broke over the weekend, Cam Ward. Is he going to transfer to Florida State? Is it Miami? Nope, going to the NFL. And then he pulls out the ultimate reverse Uno card on us and says, you know what, NFL psych, I'm going back to Miami. And I was at dinner with my wife when this broke, checked the phone in the bathroom. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Okay, Cam Ward's going to Miami. Let's talk about this on the show on Tuesday. So Cam Ward, the reason why this is so impactful, I look at what Miami was a season ago and what they're going to be next season. There's a lot of talent on this roster. To put it more specifically, there's a lot of young talent on this roster. Francis Mauigoa is a grown man. Was like a train on the tracks. You want to get out the way when he's pulling or when he's coming downhill at you on the screen, whatever it ended up being. Ruben Bain, also a grown man as a true freshman. He's going to be a force next year. They had a top 10 class in 2023 that's going to cycle up. Miami went 7-5 last year. Now, I put a little asterisk next to that because 7-5 really woulda, shoulda, coulda. Hate this if you're in Coral Gables. Woulda, shoulda, coulda been 8-4 if you would just take a knee. But still, they were 7-5, and that's an improvement, obviously, by 2 wins from 5-7 the year before. And you had a quarterback who turned it over a fair amount. Now, I understand Cam Ward had some fumbling issues at Washington State. I want to focus on what he was as a passer, because in 150 more pass attempts, he threw 5 less interceptions than Tyler Van Dyke did. Okay, that's not to throw shade at Tyler Van Dyke. I think it should just point to what Cam Ward could be for you. He fits in the system, I think, a little bit more than what they had on their roster last season. Cam Ward is an air raid kind of guy. I think Shannon Dawson, in spite of what we saw last year, wants to be a little bit more air raid. You now have the tool as a quarterback to open it up a little bit more, kind of unlock more of the offense. Also, Cam Ward brings that mobile element. I would expect there will be a fair amount of ball security drills done in Coral Gables for my man Cam Ward, but even with that being said, I think the days are long gone of you having a statuette quarterback and being successful. He had 8 rushing touchdowns last year at Washington State. I think that's a crucial ad for Miami. And the reason why I think it's the most impactful is because you look at the ACC, I just have a lot of question marks. Like Florida State, they were phenomenal last year. They were phenomenal because they had the number 1 recruiting production in the country. They will not have those freak shows on the outside and Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman and Jaheim Bell. And I'm not saying Florida State won't still be tremendous and won't win the ACC again. I'm just saying I don't know what it's going to be just yet. Clemson, I don't know what to expect this upcoming season. I got my reservations on Kate Clubb. I got my reservations on those skill players in Clemson, South Carolina, how Dabo's doing things. So the point I'm trying to make here is I think the ACC is pretty wide open. And with a team that's trending the way Miami's trending, Cam Ward could be that difference maker to get you over the top to win the ACC. We're talking about conference titles here in January, so put as much weight on that as you want to, but that's how we feel about the Cam Ward acquisition. Now, another big acquisition via the portal is twofold at Ohio State. How about the Buckeyes running it up and getting not just Will Howard from the portal via Kansas State, but also adding Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss, a dude who averaged right around 7-8 yards a carry during his career at Ole Miss in the SEC, 2 seasons. True freshman, true sophomore, dude is a dog. To me, this is Ryan Day applying the pressure. Because listen, man, at Ohio State, most places, and we talk about this a lot here, they would kill. They would do some unspeakable things to have the record that Ohio State has year in and year out. Now, the folks at Ohio State, you go 11-1, you lose to Michigan, it's a bad season. Is it fair? No. Is it reality? Absolutely. So this is Ryan Day continuing to revamp it and say, okay, we weren't good enough at quarterback last year. Look at the duration of their season. Travion Henderson's coming back. You add another back like Quinshon Judkins, we're going to be deeper at running back. We're not going to have those issues where we get thin at the running back position. So the way that they are adding armor to the car in Columbus, I'm excited to watch it because I think that could end up being a massive ad for Ohio State. One more thought on this. The same thing I said about Cam Ward is true about Will Howard. Brings a mobile element to the offense. Ohio State hasn't had a quarterback that can hurt you with his legs really since Justin Fields. They've missed that their last couple of games against Michigan rather. Will Howard will bring that to the table. J.J. McCarthy from Michigan the last couple of seasons, running around back there, playing Pirates of the Caribbean, rolling left, throwing right, and throwing for a first down. Ohio State will now have somebody to match that if they need it going forward. So I think that's a big deal. Isaiah Bond, transferring from Alabama to Texas. Is it the splashiest acquisition of the transfer portal? Probably depends on who you ask. To me, this really gives me the vibes that we got when Adonai Mitchell transferred from Georgia to Texas last season. It's no secret. When Sark has his weapons, he gets cooking. There's going to be a lot of production to replace with Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell both going to the league after this season. Isaiah Bond could be that dude that steps up. He flashed several times at Alabama. I don't think we really got to see him cut it loose this past year with what Jalen Milroe maybe was limited doing consistently throwing the football. With Quinn Ewers, Isaiah Bond, that's going to be a really good fit. I like the way he fits in that offense. Real deep threat for you, real speed. Very, very big acquisition in terms of Steve Sarkisian having his weapons and being able to continue on what he did last year. I tweeted this out and said, when Steve Sarkisian has his weapons, it's scary hours. And a lot of people kind of got my mentions and said, well, he had his weapons this past year. They didn't win the national championship. No, but they won the Big 12, and they made the college football playoff. And they were an Adonai Mitchell acrobatic catch away from playing for a national title. So I think the point stands. When he's got dudes on the perimeter, Texas is in a good spot. So Isaiah Bond adding to the dude factor on the perimeter in Austin. Now, how about Oregon? And this was probably a little bit more splashy. How about Oregon securing not just their quarterback for the present in Dylan Gabriel, or left-handed Bo Nix, as I like to call him, going to Eugene, but securing their quarterback for the future in the Big Ten. Dante Moore from UCLA said, you know what? Yeah, I was a 5-star cat out of high school. I'm cool to sit for a year. I want to learn from Dylan Gabriel. Man, such a mature move by the guy. That's massive. Because in this Will Stein offense, we've seen, man, if you got a quarterback, you got more than a chance. You got someone to run this operation, you will slice and dice your way to a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. So having the depth there at quarterback to continue this year and beyond in the Big Ten Conference, that was massive for Dan Lanning. Speaks volumes about the resources at Oregon yet again, landing not one but 2 portal quarterbacks that were, at the time of us being live, or at the time of them committing rather, were 2 of the top 3 portal quarterbacks available. Massive for Dan Lanning, massive for Oregon. I think those were, we could look back and say that was kind of the tone setter for Oregon. That was when everything switched up for them in terms of continually being a powerhouse, among other things, in Eugene. We talked about this a lot as well, but I want to make sure we revisit this. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are doing Lane Kiffin things in the transfer portal. Ole Miss is looking to match the price of admission in the SEC. Because we see this now. Georgia, Bama. How were they in the SEC championship a year ago? Because of how they play on the line of scrimmage. In some large part rather, because of how they play it on the line of scrimmage. Ole Miss, you're always going to have some offensive output with Lane Kiffin running the show for you. Jackson Dart, tremendous. He's coming back for another year. We'll talk more about him probably on tomorrow's show. But what they have in the trenches now by way of the portal with Princely Umanmielen, with Walter Nolan from A&M, from Tyler Barron from Tennessee, dudes who have played real meaningful football in this conference and going to level up in that trenches, like that's going to make them really scary. Because now I think if you're Ole Miss, the offense was always going to keep you in it, or was always your thought that it would keep you in it, but now you can play different styles of games, in theory at least. On paper, you have the guys to try and hold a run game at bay. You don't have to play the game where you just score 40 and make them catch you. You would still like to do that, but if you can make a team one-dimensional offensively, and Ole Miss is looking to do that now with how they stacked up the trenches on the defensive line, like, Ole Miss is going to be scary. So I cannot wait to watch that take the field next year. It's one thing to do it on paper, another thing to do it on the grass, but the dudes they got through the portal that I just mentioned, absolutely massive in Oxford, Mississippi. So the way they upped the price of admission, or way they matched the price of admission now to win in the SEC, you got to have the big boys. Ole Miss now has the big boys. They gave up 4 yards a carry last year. I would be surprised if they gave up close to that number this upcoming season. Expect them more in that 3 yards a carry range. So a lot of big moves being made in the portal. We will update that impactful portal list as we move further and further into portal season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.